Imagine you are sitting in seat 4A on a routine flight. You have a drink in your hand. You are looking forward to landing in Honolulu in 20 minutes. Suddenly there is a sound like a bomb going off. Instantly, the world turns into chaos. The air is sucked out of your lungs. The temperature drops to minus 45 degrees Celsius. The roar of the wind is so loud you can't hear your own scream. You look up. Where the ceiling used to be, there is nothing. Just the open sky. You look to your left. The wall of the plane is gone. You can see the ocean 24,000 feet below. And the person standing in the aisle just a second ago, she is gone. This is not a scene from a Hollywood disaster movie. This is the terrifying reality of Aloha Airlines Flight 243. It is the story of a Boeing 737 that became a convertible at cruising altitude. It is a story of tragic loss, engineering failure, and one of the most miraculous feats of piloting in the history of aviation. To understand how this happened, we first need to understand the machine. The date is April 28, 1988. The aircraft is a Boeing 737-200 named Queen Liliuokalani. For 19 years, this plane has been a workhorse, but it wasn't flying long international routes. It was an island hopper. Aloha Airlines operated short, rapid flights between the Hawaiian Islands, Hilo to Honolulu, Maui to Kauai. These flights are short, sometimes only 20 or 30 minutes. This means the plane is constantly taking off and landing, up and down, pressurize and depressurize. Think of a metal paperclip. If you bend it once, it's fine. If you bend it back and forth thousands of times, eventually it snaps. By 1988, this specific plane had accumulated nearly 90,000 flight cycles. That was the second highest number of cycles for any Boeing 737 in the world. The plane was old, tired, and pushed to its absolute limit. But on the outside, she looked fine. In the cockpit that day were two excellent pilots. Captain Bob Schornstheimer, 44 years old, a man of few words but immense experience, and First Officer Mimi Tompkins, 36. She was ambitious and skilled, and on this leg of the journey, she was the one flying the plane. It was supposed to be the last flight of the day for them, just a quick hop from Hilo to Honolulu. Neither of them knew that the metal skin just a few feet behind their heads was holding on by a thread. At 1:25 p.m., Flight 243 takes off. There are 89 passengers on board and 5 crew members. The climb is normal. The plane levels off at 24,000 feet. The seatbelt sign is turned off. In the cabin, the head flight attendant, Clarabelle Lansing, begins the service. Clarabelle is a veteran. She has been flying for 37 years. Everyone loves her. She knows the regular passengers by name. She is standing in the aisle at row 5, handing a drink to a passenger. At exactly 1:48 p.m., the fuselage gives up. It starts with a small fatigue crack near the front galley. In a fraction of a second, the high pressure inside the cabin forces the metal skin to peel open. But it doesn't just crack. The force of the rushing air catches the loose metal and rips it backwards like the peel of a banana. An 18-foot section of the roof, from the cockpit door all the way to the wing, is instantly torn away. The explosive decompression is violent. The air inside the plane rushes out at hundreds of miles per hour. Tragically, Clarabelle Lansing, who was standing in the aisle with no seatbelt, is swept out into the void. She vanishes instantly. Inside the cabin, it is absolute pandemonium. Debris, cups, magazines, and pieces of insulation are swirling in a hurricane of wind. Passengers in the first few rows are literally sitting outside. They are battered by winds of 300 miles per hour. The oxygen masks drop, but the wind tears them away or tangles the tubes. Those seated in the first-class section look down and see the floor buckling. The only thing holding the front of the plane to the back is the floor beams. The aircraft is literally hanging together by a few strips of metal. In the cockpit, Captain Bob and First Officer Mimi felt the explosion. Their heads were snapped back. Floating debris filled the air. When they looked back, the cockpit door was gone. Where the first-class cabin should have been, they saw blue sky. "My controls feel loose," Mimi shouted, but Bob couldn't hear her. The noise of the wind was deafening, like a jet engine running right next to your ear. They couldn't talk to each other. They couldn't talk to the cabin crew. They tried to use the intercom to ask Clarabelle what was happening. There was no answer. Captain Bob took the controls. His instinct took over. He knew they needed to get down fast. At 24,000 feet, the air is too thin to breathe, and the passengers were freezing to death. He initiated an emergency descent. The plane was vibrating violently. It felt like it was going to shake itself apart. Imagine driving a car at 100 miles per hour and then suddenly the roof flies off and the chassis snaps in half. That is what Bob was trying to fly. He throttled back to slow down, trying to reduce the wind blast on the passengers. They needed to land. The nearest airport was Kahului on the island of Maui. But there was a problem. As they descended towards Maui, the full extent of the damage became clear. The controls were mushy. The cables that connected the pilot's yokes to the wings ran through the floor, and the floor was bending. Captain Bob tested the landing gear. He pulled the lever. Green light for the nose gear, green light for the right gear, no light for the left gear. The bulb was dark. Did the gear fail? Or was the bulb just broken? Or maybe the explosion had severed the hydraulic lines to the left wheel. If they landed with only one wheel down, the plane would spin out, flip over, and break into pieces. The exposed passengers would be crushed. Bob had no way to check. He couldn't send a flight attendant to look because the floor was unsafe to walk on. He tried to contact the tower at Maui. Maui Tower, Aloha 243, inbound. We have lost the cabin. The controllers on the ground couldn't understand. Lost the cabin? It sounded impossible. They thought maybe a window had blown out. They had no idea that half the plane was missing. Back in the cabin, the terror was unrelenting. Another flight attendant, Michelle Honda, had been thrown to the floor but survived. Despite her injuries, despite the wind threatening to suck her out, she crawled up and down the aisle. She grabbed passengers' hands. She shouted, "We're going to make it! Keep your heads down!" She later said she didn't know if they would make it, but she knew she had to keep them calm. If the passengers panicked and moved, the shift in weight could snap the fragile floor beams, and the plane would break in two in midair. 13 minutes after the explosion, Flight 243 lined up for the runway at Kahului Airport. Captain Bob faced a nightmare scenario. If he flew too fast, the wind could rip the plane apart. If he flew too slow, the damaged wing might stall, and they would fall out of the sky. And he still didn't know if his landing gear was down. He decided to land regardless. He had no choice. The plane was dying. As they approached the runway, the number one engine failed. Debris from the roof had been sucked into it, so now, no roof. Structural failure. One engine down. Possible gear failure. "Gear down!" Bob shouted. Mimi Tompkins looked at the light. Still dark. She manually pumped the handle, trying to force the gear down. Still no light. They were seconds from impact. Bob focused on the tarmac. He flared the nose. At 1:58 p.m., the tires touched the concrete. The left gear held. It was down. The light bulb had just been disconnected by the explosion. The broken fuselage held together. As the plane rolled to a stop, a silence fell over the cabin, broken only by the sound of weeping. They were alive. When the emergency crews arrived, they couldn't believe their eyes. The plane looked like a sardine can that had been opened with a dull knife. 65 passengers were injured, 8 of them seriously. But miraculously, only one person died that day. Clarabelle Lansing. Her body was never found. A memorial garden stands at Honolulu International Airport in her honor. But how did this happen? The NTSB investigation uncovered a hidden killer: corrosion and metal fatigue. The Boeing 737 is built with panels of aluminum that overlap. These are called lap joints. They are glued together and then riveted. But on this plane, the glue, the bonding agent, had failed years ago due to the salty, humid Hawaiian air. Water got into the cracks. The metal began to corrode. Remember the paperclip? Every time the plane took off and pressurized, the fuselage expanded slightly. Every time it landed, it contracted. Without the glue, all the stress went to the rivets. Tiny microscopic cracks formed around thousands of rivets. Eventually, the cracks connected. It's called multi-site damage. On April 28th, the metal simply couldn't hold on any longer. One rivet failed, then the next, and the skin unzipped instantly. The Queen Liliuokalani was written off and scrapped. But her final flight changed aviation forever. Because of Aloha 243, the world learned about the dangers of aging aircraft. New, stricter inspection protocols were introduced globally. Engineers stopped relying on visual checks and started using ultrasound to look for hidden cracks. If you fly on an older plane today and are safe, it is largely because of the lessons learned from Flight 243. Captain Bob Schornstheimer and Mimi Tompkins were hailed as heroes. Their skill in landing a disintegrating plane is still studied in flight schools today. They prove that even when the machine fails, the human factor, training, calmness, and courage can still save the day.